Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Empower Performance Podcast. Today's episode is going to be a little bit unique. My wife is going to be induced tonight. If all goes well tomorrow, I'm going to be a dad. And with all that, I've been reflecting on the man that I'm going to be for him as a role model. I'm having a son. I had this idea, and maybe it's naive, but I thought if I had a girl, it'd be a little bit easier in the sense that you can kind of provide and protect and all that, but I wouldn't have to be a direct role model for behaviors in that sense, or it wouldn't be as impactful. But having a son, I definitely reflected on the man that I am because he's going to see that and he's going to learn from that. And I wanted to be the best man possible for him so that I can set him up for success. So, I've been reflecting a lot over the past 6 months since we told everybody, a little bit longer since we found out, and kind of compiled my thoughts. And it feels fitting to share my reflections. Hopefully, he can look back on this one day and find value in it. And maybe my mind changes. And I think that would be interesting to have recorded this and be able to look back. But yeah, I'm basically just going to run through a bunch of thoughts, basically pieces of wisdom that I learned in my 28 years up to this point. And I hope you guys find some value in it too. So the first thing I want to talk about is that growth occurs outside the comfort zone. It's kind of an obvious thing, but if you're always lifting the same weights, you're not going to get stronger. Lifting more weight is an uncomfortable thing to do. But if you do it with the right amount of a reach, you'll grow, you'll adapt. Your body's very adaptable. An example is if you're lifting 100 pounds, you go up to 105, 110 pounds, and you wait until that gets doable. And then you go up to the next weight, it could be 115, 120 pounds. You'll get stronger that way. If you can only lift 100 pounds and you lift 200 pounds, it might break you. So obviously use some common sense there. But I think people kind of avoid discomfort. And again, people talk about no pain, no gain. When it comes to a personal training context, I say good pain equals good gain. Because again, if you're reaching within a little bit outside of your limits, then that's fine. But if it's, very sharp pain or it's, it's not right, don't force yourself into an injury. Ego is okay a little bit, but like ego lifting all the time can be dangerous and all that. So take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, get uncomfortable. And that extends to more than just the weight room. It can extend to I'm an introverted person. Doing something like this is a little bit difficult, but it makes me a better person to be able to just talk, get my thoughts out there, share it with the world, risk, ridicule, all that. It's a lot better than just sitting on the sidelines and not doing anything at all. And when you get used to getting uncomfortable, it becomes less daunting in different areas as well. For example, I do jujitsu, and you can be put in a position that's very uncomfortable and learn to be okay with it. And maybe that extends to talking to a stranger when typically you're an introverted person, which I am. Short and sweet, I just want to say try to get a little bit more uncomfortable in life. It may benefit you. That's growth. The next thing I wanted to discuss is that failure is your friend, again, with a grain of salt, but get as much experience as you can and get experience from different perspectives and be willing to acknowledge that you might be wrong. Sometimes people limit their growth by being so certain they're right about everything all the time. And it's worth considering you might be wrong about things. It gives you the opportunity to be open minded and to learn things. But then also, if you're too scared to do something, you'll never achieve anything. If you do something, you'll probably fail. It happens. It doesn't mean you'll fail forever, but it's just information, it's just feedback. People talk in the world of experiments. You might fail 100 times, but it just gives you information to eventually find success with an experiment. So just have that mentality. The faster you gain experience, high quality experience, and doing it from different perspectives, it can benefit you in your growth in the long term. People say, wins and lessons, not wins and losses. It's a healthy way to look at failure, to not fear it so much. The other thing I wanted to discuss is that it's better to make a fool of yourself than being too scared to try anything at all. There's the whole quote about being the man in the arena. It's a lot more difficult and virtuous to be the man in the arena than the people sitting on the sidelines. But if you've ever tried to organize a bachelor's party or a fantasy football league or whatever it may be for you, it's so easy for other people to make criticisms about the decisions that you make. It's a lot harder to be the person making the decisions and trying to satisfy everybody. So once you put yourself in that kind of a role, you start to have a little bit more grace for people just giving it their best and not expecting perfection. Just do your best, forget the rest. That's a motto that I like to live by. The main idea behind that is you're just focusing on controlling the controllables and not fussing too much about. Yes, you can worry about other people's opinions if you use it as feedback, but you're not going to please everybody. So don't freak out if you get some feedback that's negative. Have the courage to try things and to learn. That's what this podcast is. I tell people that if the podcast is 70 or 80% good enough to publish, I'll publish it, even though naturally I might want 100% podcast, but it doesn't exist. I also want to mention that I think gratitude is a powerful thing. Be grateful for the things that you have now that you wanted at one point in time that maybe right now you're taking for granted. And so an example is, well, I'll speak to my relationship without condemning it or anything like that, but you're always looking at the next step. So when my wife and I were dating, she was like, I can't wait to be engaged. And then she was like, I can't wait to be married. I can't wait to have a house. Can't wait to have a dog. Can't wait to have a kid and all that stuff. And that's totally fine to always be looking forward to the next step. But it's also important to appreciate the step that you're at that you couldn't wait for before. And so it's an important thing to intentionally be grateful for things. And that also reminds me of that J. Cole song, Love Yours. The whole idea behind that song is that someone's always going to have a bigger house or a nicer car or whatever. And if you're always looking above or to the next thing, you may never actually be grateful for the thing that you have in front of you. For me, with my car, I'm not like, I have a CRV. I'm very happy with it. I've never been a big car guy. I don't need a Corvette to say that I've made my dreams come true or anything like that. So as long as I have four wheels and an engine and it's safe and it can get me from A to B, I'm grateful for it. And I think that's like a healthy way to approach life. I don't have the nicest car. I don't have the biggest house. I'm happy with the life that I have. Gratitude is important. It doesn't mean you can't strive for better, but I think it's helpful to be grateful for what you have, especially when at one point you didn't have it and you wanted it, or other people have less and they would kill to have what you have. I think perspective is important in that sense. There's a famous soccer player named Zinedine Zidane. He's one of my favorite players. I actually have his picture up on my wall, and he was talking about how once he was upset that he couldn't afford new soccer cleats, and then he was walking down the street and he saw a man with no feet and he realized how rich he was. So again, perspective is a powerful thing. Gratitude is a powerful thing, and you have to exercise it. Another thing I wanted to discuss is that people love to share their secrets to success and not their failures, not their hard lessons learned. There's immense value in learning not just what to do, but also what not to do, which I'll tell you a story of a mistake that I made in business. So I took a personal trainer's business course, and one of the things they said in the course was to protect your time as best you possibly can. So, for example, you have a 24 or 48-hour cancellation policy. Somebody tries to cancel a session or reschedule in 23 hours, you take the forfeiture of a session, you take the money, even if you don't train them. That sounds nice on paper. The example given was if you make $100,000 a year and you let 10% of sessions slide, you lose $10,000 a year. So if you're just more strict about your cancellation policy, you protect your business that much better. In theory is very sound advice. In practice is a different thing. And that's something that if anybody ventures into entrepreneurship or just dealing with people in general, it's helpful to learn that black and white doesn't always work and it's important to bend sometimes. So the story is I have a client that is still trained to this day. A few years ago, I drove to the client's house. The client wasn't even in the same state and I didn't get a message that they weren't there. And so I used to sell 4-week phases with a 5-week expiration date. It was the last session of that 4-week phase. I drove to their house. They weren't there. It's within the contract, clearly a forfeiture of a session. I just sent the message. I said, hey, this is a forfeiture without first being curious as to why the person missed a session. I could have said, hey, is everything okay? Whatever. The client was upset with how I dealt with the situation. And to be fair, they have a reason to. Even though contractually I was correct, I don't think I had enough tact or empathy or curiosity in that moment. And so they weren't going to sign for a new phase. I decided to let that one session slide, give them that session, and then they signed up for another phase after that. I haven't had an issue with them. I've trained them for years since. I won't say a specific number of what I would have lost with that one session versus what I've made from them since then. But just to give a BS number, I could have lost out $100 on one day and made $10,000 in the years I've trained them since then. So even though the rule says be perfect to protect your money, in theory, if I rub every client the wrong way because I never ever bend, then I don't have business. Client retention is huge. You kind of have to bend for clients to be able to keep them happy and to keep them long term. So that's one of the things. It's about theory and practice and how they're not always the same. But then also I just want to share with you a mistake that I made. And hopefully if you guys ever get into a venture like this, you can learn that, yeah, you don't want to bend so much that it actually is harmful for business. But if you never bend, that might also be bad for your reputation as well or your personal relationships. Another thing I wanted to discuss is and versus or conversations. This is kind of like a pet peeve for me. I see so many or conversations, this or that, barbell back squat or front squat. And then people say, well, front squat's better because your torso positioning. People say back squat's better because you can load it more. And then it's all about output and leg development, whatever. You can do both. You can front squat, you can back squat. People say barbell deadlift, trap bar deadlift. Any of those conversations don't have to be or conversations. Interval conditioning, steady state conditioning. You can do both. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that everything needs to be or this or that, this or that, this or that. It doesn't need to be. You have the choice. People say like gun to your head. Guess what? There's not actually a gun to your head. Do both. I think it benefits you as a trainer to implement every style within context, within reason, and all that stuff, as opposed to, oh, well, I'm a barbell only guy. There's some people it's like I'm TRX only. And it's fine if you have a niche. It's fine if it works for your business model and all that stuff, but use all the tools, use all the styles. I think it makes you a more well-rounded person, but then that just applies to life in general. So don't fall for the this or that trap, fall for the and. You can use both. An example I want to use in terms of parenting, tomorrow would in theory be my first day parenting. So it feels weird. I'm not giving real parenting advice with zero experience. It's more prediction. But I used to think, you'd see some parents that seemed like they were failures of parents, which is a harsh thing to say. because they were only their kids' friends, but the kid didn't have any structure and there wasn't boundaries, there wasn't respect, there were no punishments or disciplines or consequences or anything like that. So you hear some people say it's like, I'm not in this to be my kid's friend. I'm here to be a parent. I used to think that was like a very virtuous thing. um, and then I realized that's actually an or conversation, this or that, friend or parent. And I guess and is a possibility, wouldn't it be? Can't you be your kid's friend and be the parent at the same time, be responsible, set boundaries, have discipline and all these things? I think of how I am with my dog. When my dog's behaving, I play with him all the time. I give him a lot of love, and I think we're best pals. And then there's sometimes where guests come in the house and he jumps up and maybe he clips them in the face because he's too excited. He's a big dog. And I have to be strict. I have to, give him a finger wag, yell at him a little bit, tell him to go to his place. So I definitely think that and can apply to more than training, of course. And in the context of parenting, I hope to be able to do both. I hope to be my son's friend and also his parent. Another topic I wanted to discuss was this is something that I've been reflecting on, but my goal, well, let me tell a story real quick. I do MMA, and one day one of the kids in MMA said, "Why are you doing this? Do you just want to be super dad? Like you're not competing. You don't have any competitive aspirations. Like you're just training just to train. Like what's the deal?" And I said, "Yes, I do want to be super dad. I want my kid to train. I think martial arts is a valuable process of self improvement, mentally, emotionally, physically as well. And then I think it's a crazy world. You never know when you have to defend yourself or somebody you care about. So it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And then it can be fun. So I want my kid to do martial arts at some stage in his life. If he could be a lifelong martial artist, cool. Doesn't matter what he does specifically. No. Does he have to compete? No. Should he have some training? I think he should. Having said that, I don't ever want to ask my kid to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So the idea is I imagine that fatherhood is leadership. Leadership is leading by example. Setting the example is never asking someone to do something that you wouldn't do yourself if you had the ability to. So I want my kid to be able to respect me and look up to me and think that I'm super dad because he sees me training and he wants to train with me. I have a heavy bag right there. Maybe I get him a little one and we can hit the bag at the same time. I've seen a lot of videos like that. It seems like a beautiful bonding experience. So yeah, my goal is to be the man that I want my son to be, not just to ask, the whole do as I say, not as I do. I want to do and, set the example. I think that's powerful. A hard lesson that I had to learn in my life. So when it comes to competition, soccer was my sport from 9 to 21. I started a little late. I started playing competitively at 13 and then I played up until college when I graduated at 21. And I cared so much about just playing for the best team that as soon as I could upgrade to a higher level team, I would. But I never stayed at one team long enough that I could become the best player on that team. So for much of my career, I was, bench warmer. I was a substitute. It's kind of frustrating because you want to succeed, you want to play, you want to do all these things. Maybe there's a lot of my career that I missed out on development from in-game experience because I was very ambitious. And one of the mistakes that I had mentally that I wish I could share with you guys now, and hopefully my son doesn't run into this trap, is the idea of fairness. People say life isn't fair, but the word deserve versus earned is something that I learned maybe a little bit later than I wish, but still early enough that I have the rest of my life now to apply this theory. I used to think that if there was someone who was playing in my position and they were playing more minutes than me, to deserve playing time over that person, I would have to be 1% better. And then the coaches would magically realize I was 1% better and give me the time that I deserved. I think that's a failed way of thinking about it. I think that if the mandatory amount better that I have to be than that person to get playing time is twice as good as that person, then that's what I should have had in my mind. I should have set the goal for myself to be twice as good as that person to be better. And there is no deserving, there's only earning. And if I did well enough, there's no coach that is really that like political or biased that if you're scoring 3 goals every single game, they're not going to play you. Like that's not a thing. So if I just set that for myself where it's like, oh, I don't need to be 1% better. I need to be undeniable. I need to be so damn good that they would be fools not to play me. Everybody on the field knows I'm the best player on the field, that everybody on my team knows I'm the best player on the team. So it's easier said than done, but at least that would put me in a mentally healthy state, in my opinion, or at least a better state where I stopped worrying about, oh, it's unfair. It's unfair. I deserve this. I deserve that. People don't give you handouts in life. You're not handed the crown. You got to take it. That's the idea. So you got to earn it. So I definitely worked very, very hard. I definitely gave my best effort. I just wish I would have done it with a different perspective where I cared less about deserving and more about earning. Another thing I wanted to discuss, there was a concept I was introduced to recently, which I found to be interesting. Right now, I'm doing a full body split for working out, where one day I'll do heavy lifting, and then I'll do lower body, I'll do pushing, I'll do pulling, I'll do those kinds of movements. And the next day, I'll do some heavy bag work, I'll do some mobility, I'll do some cardio. The idea in regards to training was masculine versus feminine training, which may be offensive to some people. That's not what I'm trying to get at. But the tougher, grindier movements versus maybe the more loose, relaxed movements. And I think to be very athletic, you need to have a balance of both. You need to be able to do your skipping, you need to be able to do your mobility and all that stuff, be able to bend and reach and to relax. You know, they talk about relax, contract is an important thing for sports. So just think like you're loose and then you jump, you're loose and then you punch, you sprint, and it's very violent and very relaxed at the same time and it's balanced. You don't want to be a bodybuilder that's so stiff and you don't do anything else and you can't jump or sprint, can't scratch your back. But then on the flip side, you don't want to be so loosey goosey that you can't produce or absorb force in the slightest. So you need to marry those things together, the tough stuff and the soft stuff. I think that kind of applies to healthy masculinity in the same way. This may be a direction that maybe some of you guys wouldn't appreciate. And I don't want to talk about gender stereotypes or whatever the norms are today. That's not the scope of this podcast. But I'm going to have a son. I'm going to try to teach him what healthy masculinity is. And to me, it's being able to balance the soft and the tough side of life. Yeah, if you fall down, get up and brush it off and, get back in the game or whatever it may be. But on the same side, it doesn't mean that you bury your emotions forever and you can't communicate them healthy in a healthy way with people, that you can never express yourself. You can't be into art. You can't be into music. It just has to be the tough things all the time. And I think of chivalry. I heard this recently and I actually appreciated the analogy. A knight was capable of going to war and killing people with a sword, but then they were also able to compose sonnets and dance with a maiden. So the soft side and the tough side, and I think that's a nice theme in general, which I'll touch on later in this podcast. But I want to teach that to my son. I want to teach him that he can be kind and loving and in moments emotional, and other times he just needs to be tough and grit his teeth and push through the challenges that life throw at him. I don't want him to just be soft and then when life gets tough, he's not ready to meet the demands. I want to be just be tough and then in moments where he can relax, he's not able to communicate love or gratitude or express his emotions properly. I think that's dangerous. And I think I definitely led a little bit too much towards the tough side early in life. And I make fun of myself now for being, soft. But I actually find that I'm a healthier person now and I have better balance. And I think my relationships are stronger because of it. So even though it feels unnatural to what I was when I was 18, for example, now that I'm 28, I find that I'm happier and the people that I love are happier with the person I am today. And I think that's growth and I think it's balance. Kind of along those lines, correction doesn't mean overcorrection. You don't have to go to the opposite extreme. So the next thing I want to talk about is the importance of striving for meaning in life rather than just happiness. And that kind of goes in line with the idea of short term versus long term gratification. I think it's easy for people to want short term gratification, but it's not ultimately fulfilling. An example is you eat a slice of pie, you drink a beer, you sit down and watch the game. Those things make you happy in the moment. And then afterwards, maybe you feel like crap, maybe you feel guilty, maybe you feel bad about yourself. So short term happy, long term not really happy. Or you can delay gratification. You can do something that in the moment is uncomfortable. You can go for a run, you can lift weights. In the moment, it's not a great feeling, but then afterwards, maybe get the endorphins, or maybe you get to look back on yourself with pride. So the main thing that I'm trying to say is that if you can lay your head down at night knowing that you did something meaningful or purposeful, that brings happiness or at least contentment. Happiness is an emotion, but there's a balance to life. You're not going to be happy all the time. You're not going to be sad all the time. As long as you can be proud of yourself, I think that's a powerful thing, as opposed to, yeah, like I did all the selfish things for me today, but I didn't prioritize myself for tomorrow. And I'm gonna pay for it eventually. There's the idea of choose your hard. They say it's it's hard to eat healthy, or not eat that slice of cake and all that stuff, but then it's good to feel good, to have energy, to not have like gut issues or anything like that. And then on the flip side, it's yeah, it's like easy to eat the cake, but then it may pay later on. You might have gut issues or whatever, feel lethargic. Same thing with money, same thing with exercise. They say choose your hard. So I just think life is gonna be difficult no matter what you do. I have some clients say they'd rather feel pain from lifting weights than from not touching weights ever, and then they get up off the couch and their back hurts from doing nothing. So choose your hard. Pride. I mentioned pride. Pride can be a tricky thing. I think there's a balance there as well. I think if you have too much pride, it's like a dangerous sense of ego. And then I think at that point you start to protect your ego. And then I think that gives you some personality issues. It can make you insecure. It can make you snappy. It can make you mean. It can be whatever. And I definitely had a thing where pride was important for me when I was younger. Wasn't the best at anything and people would kind of shit talk me and I didn't like it. So I would try to prove everybody wrong all the time. And it was just a point of pride. It was just protecting myself because people say you're not good enough. I'd say, no, I am good enough. Let me show you. I'll prove you wrong. I think there's something healthy to the underdog mentality and that, but then it can also go too far where I definitely had anger issues because of it. And it was self-preservation. That was what was manifesting it. And on the flip side, you can not take pride in cleaning your bedroom or having a clean car or taking care of your body or taking care of your mind or whatever. And then what's the point of anything? You're just gonna be completely complacent and not achieve what you could possibly achieve in life, you know? So I think take enough pride in yourself that you're willing to do stuff to better yourself, but then don't have so much pride in yourself that you think you're perfect and there's nothing to improve. Have that healthy level of pride. Find that balance. And yeah, balance is a common theme for me. I think you can overdo things. I think you can underdo things. I try to avoid using absolutes. Another thing is I've already talked about how growth is uncomfortable, but it can also be scary. I think some people don't grow subconsciously because they're scared of the person they might become because it's unfamiliar and they don't know if it'll be better or worse. There's a belief that to become who you want to become, you have to let who you currently are die first. I agree with it somewhat. I don't think you have to let all of yourself die to become who you want to become. You're not a phoenix. You're not a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. You're a person, and not all of you is bad. I think you can just change. Look at yourself, see what's good, keep what's good, see what's bad, work on it, and just try to improve it. But within the bad, you do have to let go of that. When we talk about behavior change, especially in the coaching realm, it's easier to replace a bad behavior with a good behavior than it is to just try to, go cold turkey on the bad behavior. So let's talk nutrition, for example. If you aren't, or if you're eating a lot of junk food, if you just try to add a little bit of healthy food that you aren't eating, you add one serving of fruits and one serving of vegetables in the day, that'll fill your stomach, and you can only eat so much in a day. But just as a result of that, you're going to eat a little bit less junk food. You're going to have a healthier diet. But I like to almost think of adding good as opposed to removing bad. It'll all balance out in the end. But yeah, that's one of the things I'm trying to get across. I want to talk about how life is stress. People always talk about anti-inflammatory, and this, that, and the other. Like inflammation isn't desirable in a chronic state, but it's also a natural bodily response to acute stress or to injury and all that stuff. The person who invented RICE, which is rest, ice compression, and elevation, kind of denounced that method, saying that all that was to reduce swelling. And he's like, well, swelling is actually a natural response of the body to help the healing process. Some studies have shown that ice baths can reduce muscle growth. I don't know what the percentage would be if it's negligible or not. So I'm not saying don't take an ice bath. I'm not also saying that you have to take an ice bath. If you like it, do it. But I think people try to outsmart their bodies a little bit too much. So along those lines of stress, you do want to face stress, not too much, not too little. And I kind of talked about that earlier. If you're looking at the stress of life, there's some stress that you can choose, you can control, and some that you can't. So an example is if I'm playing sports and someone runs through me, it's going to hurt. That's a lot of stress. I can't control what that person does, but I can control the stress in the weight room. I can get stronger. And then my body can be more resilient for the next time someone tries to run through me on a soccer field, for example. And then it won't hurt so much. So what I would suggest to you is life is stressful. That's not a bad thing. Choose stress as much as you can adapt to. And then you're going to be more resilient for what life throws at you. But it's kind of the controllables for what you can control. Build resiliency. I implore you to have this mentality of as opposed to avoiding stress at all costs, there is a healthy amount of stress where your body will adapt. You as a person will adapt. And I think that's an empowering thing to realize that I'm not broken. I don't have to avoid everything. I don't have to be bubble boy. I think it makes you a stronger person. And you see videos, for example, of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think in his 70s, some teenager ran up and jumped and kicked him. And he was fine. Why? He has muscle, he has strength, he has a history of resiliency. So I just recommend you guys, in whatever capacity you want, if it's going for a run, not so much that you get shin splints or you snap your Achilles tendon, but enough that it works your lungs and your heart and you can recover, or lifting weights or martial arts or something. Push yourself, get outside your comfort zone, apply stress to your body, adapt, become more resilient. You're just going to be a better as a person because of it, mentally and physically. This one's a nice one to talk about. Random acts of kindness not only make the world a better place, but then they also are like gratifying in a selfish way. I have never felt bad about doing something nice without the expectation of gratitude. If you hold the door open for somebody and they don't say thank you and you're expecting a thank you, that can ruin your day. So don't have that expectation. Hold it open because it's the right thing to do. And then if you do get the thank you, then it's almost like a bonus, right? So a story that made me happy recently was I was at the grocery store in town and a woman had a balloon clipped to her cart and the clip came undone somehow and the balloon flew up and hit the ceiling and it was just out of reach, the string, she couldn't reach it. So I jumped up and grabbed the string for her. I handed her the balloon and normally strangers, if you're familiar with the term NPCs, if you play video games or something like that, that's what we are to each other. We're just like background characters in a TV show that don't get a line. It's rare that we actually make eye contact with each other and have like honest connections with each other. And to hand this woman a balloon was such an easy thing to do, and it wasn't that special in my mind. And yet she took the time to look me in the eye and give me an honest, sincere thank you. And it's very meaningful to me. But I just felt good being able to help out in the first place. And I just have a couple of memories like that, which to me are insignificant, that are just stuck there of times where I randomly did one nice thing for a stranger. So if ever you're curious or wondering if you should do that one nice thing, if it'll make a difference. If it doesn't make a difference to them, but at least you don't have the expectation, it should make a difference for you. Do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. The thank you is a bonus, but it just makes the world a better place. And if we all do that, I think we'll be happier as a people. Along those lines as well, perspective is a powerful thing. A lot of people will say things like, why is this happening to me? Why does this happen to me? I think there's two healthier alternatives. One is you can just be more stoic in the sense that you realize that things just happen. They're not happening to you, they just happen. People drive cars, people get into car crashes. You can get in a car crash, it can happen because you're a person and you drive. And every time you get in a car, you run the risk of getting in a car crash. So you can not take it personally when something like that happens, although that's not a great example. Or you can think, why is this happening for me? So you never know, the rationale behind something happening. You can assign meaning to things. It's not that everything already has assigned meaning. You can look for meaning within things, but life isn't going to be, just an upward trajectory forever. You're going to have your ups and downs. When the downs happen, how can you try to have a positive mentality about it? How can you think, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Seeing it almost as an opportunity. And I know it's more difficult in some instances than others. There's some situations I hope never happen to me. My wife is going to be induced tonight. Tomorrow we should have a healthy son. I hope nothing bad ever happens to him, knowing that bad things happen in the world, but I don't want to have to learn the lesson of resiliency in his instance. So it's natural to not want bad things to happen to you, but when they do, you can have a period of self pity, or you can try to not glass half full necessarily, but can try to find some light in the darkness. Along those lines, being an optimist and being a realist at the same time, I think is a very powerful combination. So let's use a glass half full, glass half empty kind of analogy. Suppose your glass is actually 25% full. If you're an optimist but not a realist, maybe you say it's 30%, 40%, 50% full, but then you're lying to yourself, and that may set you up for failure. On the flip side, if you have 25% and you say, oh, well, I'm missing 75%. You are being realistic, but it's also kind of not optimistic. It's pessimistic. It's nihilistic. It's like, what's the point of anything? And that doesn't set you up for success either. I think a powerful combination is to be honest about the situation you're in and still believe that there's room for growth, or have an opportunistic mentality in that sense. What can you do? What can you achieve with what you have available to you at any point in time? So, an example is I tore my MCL a little bit over a year ago. And I also had an injury when I was a high schooler, my senior year. I handled this most recent injury much better than when I was an 18-year-old. When I was 18, I was injured and I just felt immense self pity. I had surgery on my foot. I was out for 6 months, a little longer. And I was like, man, like every week, every month matters to being able to play in college and continue pursuing my dreams. And so I was just feeling really sorry about myself. I let it affect my mood. And after a period of self pity, I decided I'd just start going to the gym and working on whatever I could, kind of more glass half full, but it definitely was glass half empty in the beginning. And it wasn't a healthy place to be. When I tore my MCL a little over a year ago, my mentality was a lot healthier in the sense that I was like, okay, maybe my glass is only 20% full, but I'm going to look at that 20% and I'm going to try to do as much as I can with what I have available to me. Sure, I can't use my right leg. My left leg works fine. My core works fine. My arms work fine. Guess what I did for my workouts? I did the things I could do. And in the meantime, I realized, okay, my left and right leg aren't going to be balanced. I'm just going to keep working what I can on my right leg until it's equal to my left leg. And then I'll have the idea that I'm mostly recovered at that point. So, early on, it was just being able to straighten my leg fully or being able to bend it fully. And that took a couple weeks. But every single day, I would just keep trying to straighten it as much as I can and bend it as much as I can. Or I'd use a bike and I'd try to do some rotations on the bike, and I couldn't even do the full rotation yet. So I was just doing the bottom half of the bike until eventually I could do the full bike. And then I would start to lower the seat intentionally so I get an even bigger knee bend. But I just looked at what I could do with it. Like, sure, I can't deadlift the same. Sure, I can't squat the same. But man, I can do leg extensions and I can do TKEs. I can do knee flexion and extension. I can do a bike. And whatever I could do, I was like a dog with a bone. I just go crazy for it. And I think it helped me recover quicker. I was also intelligent about being aware of how my body responded to the stresses I was applying. If it was too much, you would tell it'd be too much pain or it felt like you were regressing. But I knew that pain was kind of innate. It was part of it. So as long as I was within like a 3 to 4 out of 10, I was willing to keep pushing. If I reached like a 7 or 8, that's kind of crazy. That's a bit much. You don't have to force into that, but don't expect it to be 0 or 1. And I guess what I'm really trying to say is self pity doesn't really benefit anybody. Just try to be a realist and be an optimist. And I think that'll help you recover or bounce back from the difficulties of life quicker and better. Okay, so this next one's kind of interesting. This is maybe something I want to communicate to my son. Kind of has to do with the masculinity thing. But there's a quote saying that being a pacifist who is incapable of violence is not virtuous. It's only virtuous if you are capable of violence. So I'm not saying be capable of violence, but martial arts is violent by nature. I'm not telling my kid to learn it so he can go and be a bully. That would be 100% against what I stand for and the purpose of him doing it. I see it as self-defense for himself and for his loved ones. Otherwise, you don't have to use it, and it's just a fun sport or pursuit to be involved in. But it's kind of like it's, you know, better to, like I said, have it and not need it than need it not have it. It's kind of like it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener at war. So I see strength as an important thing. People say nice guys finish last, and in my mind, weak guys finish last. It's kind of like being a pacifist, but also being incapable of violence. It's not virtuous. There's nothing there. You don't have the capacity to be violent, so there's no virtue to it. So I'd rather my kid be strong and choose to be kind as opposed to being nice coming from a place of weakness. I'd rather him be nice coming from a place of strength. So if nice guys are the ones who finish last, maybe you can create different terminology for it. Kind people can be people who are strong and still choose to be kind with their platforms or what they have available to them. I hope my kid is strong, but I hope he also sticks up for people who aren't. And to me, that's virtuous, as opposed to rolling over anytime he deals with conflict and then saying, look, I'm not causing any problems. So, yeah, absolutely. I think there's balance there. I think it's important to have both. Another thing is you can't please everybody. This was a hard lesson learned for me. When I was in elementary school, I got bullied and it was a very difficult thing for me. I felt alone. I felt angry. So I kind of like snapped back at people. People would say, you're this, you're that. And I'd be like, well, you're this, you're that. Thinking if I mess with them twice as hard as they mess with me, they won't want to mess with me ever again. But that doesn't make friends. So I teach my kid that like, you're not going to be liked by everybody, but that's also not the best way to respond. And I think part of it was I was giving people the reactions they were looking for. So they enjoyed messing with me. And something that I feel bad about is that there was maybe a few people on the totem pole of school that were below me, and I thought, "Man, people make fun of them too. If I make fun of them, are they gonna like me? Am I gonna be on their side?" So I certainly feel bad about the people that I bullied as like a cycle of bullying in my life. And I have reached out to them and apologized to them later when I was a little bit more grown up and explained to them that it had nothing to do with them and everything to do with me. And that I was sorry and that I hope that my actions hadn't impacted them too greatly. I told them as well that I wasn't doing it for forgiveness. I was doing it because I couldn't really sleep at night or feel good about myself if I hadn't apologized because they deserved an apology. I'm very grateful that all three of them were big enough men to forgive me. It's like the cherry on top with doing something not expecting a thanks. I wasn't expecting forgiveness. I didn't really think I deserved it. Maybe I'm being harsh on myself, but I'm glad I got it. Um, but I'm especially glad I apologized for my actions and owned up for them. So yeah, the whole not worrying about people's thoughts about you. I went into middle school and I thought this is going to be different. I'm going to do everything I can to be so well liked. I'm a naturally introverted person. I tried talking to everybody. I think I got like, most outgoing in the yearbook that year. I tried being the class clown. I let my grades slip because I cared more about entertaining people and trying to impress and all that stuff. And who do you want me to be? I'll be that person. And then I learned that people thought I was annoying because what this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, I can't please everybody. I went from not caring what anybody thought, but being mean and nobody liked me to caring what everybody thought and being fake and nobody liked me. And then in high school, I realized, and this is kind of the person I've been since, you can't please everybody. Be honest with who you are and don't expect everybody to like you. I just didn't mess with people that didn't mess with me. And it wasn't a personal thing. And if I liked who I was and somebody liked me for who I was, I would give them my time. And if they didn't, then I wouldn't give them my time. And it wasn't an issue. And in that sense, I felt free because I didn't have to impress. I didn't have to please people. And then I also didn't have to fight my bullies all the time or continue this cycle of bullying. So a lesson that I learned is be comfortable with who you are. And if you're not, that's an opportunity to look in the mirror and work on yourself, which is an important thing because I certainly need to work on myself too. Another thing that kind of falls in line with is don't delegate the responsibility of loving yourself to somebody else. Some people will love themselves 50%, meet someone who loves them 60%, and think, wow, this person loves me so much. If you love yourself 100% and someone loves you 60%, you may not want them in your lives. So if you work on yourself and you work on your relationship with yourself and your self talk and not lying to yourself, but just honestly learning to love yourself, which I know is a difficult thing for people. I'm not going to tell them how. We all have to work on it. But if you can, then you won't accept less than what perhaps you should have in life. I am grateful to say I have a lot of friends that I really care about and they really care about me. And, some people say love is reciprocity. Doesn't need to be scorekeeping, but if you give someone your everything and they give you nothing in return, that's not healthy. And I think you're capable of doing that if you love someone 100%, but they only love you 60%, but you think it's okay because you only love yourself 50%. So try your best to love yourself fully. And then from there, surround yourself with people who love you fully as well. And then you should love them fully in return. I think one of the most important decisions a person makes in their life is, yes, the significant other they choose to build their life with. And I'm uh, proud of the choices I've made in that department. I'm very grateful for my wife, especially now. She went through 9 months of pregnancy, and now she's gonna go into labor and give us our son and all that stuff, and it's a beautiful thing, and I called her today and told her I was grateful and I was proud of her, and I believe in her, and that, I felt guilty that I couldn't really contribute because it feels like it should be a shared task, and I'm basically sitting on the sidelines. I'll help as best I can, but, I can't push the baby out for her. But your circle matters so, so, so much. You are the culmination of the people you surround yourself with and the experiences that you've had in your life. People can bring you up or they can bring you down, and I think it's important to surround yourself with people that bring you up as much as you can, and then also show them love and appreciation and gratitude. Bravery is more virtuous than fearlessness. It's not hard to do something if it doesn't scare you. If something scares you and you do it anyway, there's virtue in that. So it's okay to be scared. People act like, "Oh, I'm not scared of anything." It's like, "All right, well, if a bear was chasing you down right now, I'm sure your heart would be pumping. I'm sure that'd be a scary thing to you, and it's okay to be scared, but then also you have to do difficult things in life, things that you may be scared to do. It's important to be brave as well. You don't achieve big things in life without taking risks or putting yourself out there, and it may be scary to do that. So, yeah, you can just try to not be afraid, which if that works for you, cool, but it's also important to be brave and to do the things that scare you anyway. Two things happen. One, it can make you feel really alive when you actually do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or two, you know, you realize, big whoop, it's not the end of the world, I'm still here, and it just makes things in general less scary moving forward. Next, I wanna discuss the power of choice. There's this kind of it's not really a fable, it's just a story that I heard once where and it could be completely made up, but there was these twin brothers, and they had an alcoholic, abusive father. Many years later, after the kids move out of the house, they try to follow up and see how the 2 brothers are doing, and they lost contact with each other. They go to the first brother and they say, like, "How are you doing?" And he's like, "Not good, life is terrible." And they realize he's an alcoholic abuser to his own kids. And they say, Why are you an alcoholic? Why are you abusive?" And he said, "Because my dad was an alcoholic and he was abusive." Then they go to the other brother. He never touched the bottle, he never hits his kids, he's a loving family man. And they say, "Why are you like this? Like, what happened to you in your life that made you like this?" He said, "My father was an alcoholic abuser." The main idea here is it's not your fault what happens to you in life, but it is your responsibility to deal with it, and you do have the power of choice for how you deal with it. In that instance, 2 people had the exact same experiences, and one chose to use one as an excuse, and one chose to use it as motivation to be better. So, if you have the opportunity, and you have a choice, try to make the right choice. And, hate to break it to you, but, the right choice and the easy choice aren't always the same choice. In fact, sometimes they rarely feel like they're the same choice. So, do your best to make the right choices. Emotional regulation is undervalued, especially in men. You talk about masculinity, and a lot of it is feeling that people don't care if you have to say something, which certainly can be an issue. So it's important to find people who do care. But then also you're told, be tough, don't cry, all these different things. It's okay to cry. I'm not saying cry all the time. I'm not saying like never be tough, never fight back. I'm not, saying violence. I just mean like when you have challenges in life, you need to grit your teeth and push through them. But it's important to have balance. It's important to be able to express yourself. So right off the bat, if you need therapy, get therapy. I thought for a long time I didn't need it and I would just be able to figure out my anger issues on my own, and it didn't work that way. And I got a little bit of therapy and it certainly helped quite a bit to give me mental frameworks to deal with my anger better, and to understand why I was angry in the first place. And that was very helpful. I think my wife would appreciate that too. She's a therapist, so that's good for business. But then if you're not gonna do therapy or you can't do therapy, I still think it's important to find a place to express yourself in a safe environment or in a healthy way. Whether it's making music or art, or it's going on a hike without any music and you're just listening to nature, or it's meditation, or it's whatever is important to you. I think being able to express yourself or to find silence or to find peace is an important thing. I also want to advocate for boredom. I think we're attached to our phones all the time, and I think it's okay to just sit and stare out of a window sometimes. I think we've lost that. I remember that as a kid, you go on a long drive and you'd be bored out of your mind, but then you have time to reflect and think and be on your own. And you know, I I will do my best to let my kid be bored sometimes because there's value in that. I don't need to put an iPad in front of his face 24/7. Why did I start this podcast? There are two main reasons. It's not for money. I'm losing money on this podcast because I have to pay for equipment and software to be able to edit, and it's not for clout. It's not to be a Joe Rogan experience, the biggest podcast and be able to say, oh, this, that, or the other. It's really just to take a risk of sharing my thoughts and emotions. It's almost like having a diary that you share with the world. It's kind of a brave thing, I guess. And it makes me more comfortable being able to talk and express myself. Feels a lot easier now than the very first podcast I ever recorded. Even when I was a guest on my friend Ben's podcast, he's the one who got me into podcasting in the first place. Man, I was nervous. The first 2 minutes he said, "Tell us about yourself," and my hands were shaking. And I did not like that feeling. So as opposed to running away from that forever, I thought, how about I start a podcast? And then I can get more used to this feeling and then feel less nervous about stuff like this. So, what I wanted to discuss was, why did I start this podcast? I started it for two main reasons. One was, of course, to put myself out there and to not sit on the sidelines, to be the man in the arena. The other reason is I am a solo entrepreneur, so it's just me. I don't have a boss. I don't have employees. It's just me. I have my garage gym in a small town, and then I travel to clients' homes for one-on-one sessions as well. That's the big part of my business. But outside of that, I don't have peers to speak to about my business all the time and all that. So social media for me, I know social media can be positive and negative depending on how you use it, like any tool. But for me, I actually find it as a really powerful way to make connections. And it's honestly made me, I guess, more optimistic about meeting people in general because, you might think I've seen three trainers, maybe they're not that great or whatever, but you get to meet a lot of really smart coaches, really decent people and make these friendships and connections. And so for me, it's absolutely worth it. I used to kind of scoff at the term networking because it felt kind of sleazy. It's like, let me give you my card, you give me your card. What can you do for me? What can I do for you? And if you look at it as a transactional thing, then I don't think it's the best. I'm not trying to make people feel bad if that's your thing. But in my business, I like it to be able to have friendships and share ideas and learn from other people. And I'm grateful to say that, you know, before I'd only be able to talk to my wife about the business and she doesn't care about this stuff so much. She's just listening to be polite. I now have people that are just as excited about this as I am to be able to talk to about this. And that's, yeah, it's nice. I tell people it's almost like you make friends in preschool or something like that. And you run up to your mom and it's like, I made a friend, we played with the ball. We like this. We like that. So, I feel like I have that now as an adult for my field. So yeah, that's the main two reasons, just to put myself out there. And then it's to make connections. But then also, maybe this is actually the most important thing is if I share a piece of advice with you guys and it's profound and it makes a difference and it maybe doesn't mean that much to me in the moment, it's kind of like a throwaway line, but it's very impactful for you, then that means a ton. And you never know when you say something that makes a big difference on someone. But for example, there was one time where I was at like a family function, friends and family were over and all that stuff. And I was talking to a neighbor of mine, someone who's close to the family. And I was telling her that I was brutally honest. And she just had this throwaway line. She said, I always used to say I was brutally honest, but then I realized you can be honest without the brutality. And she might not remember having said that at all. And that comment just like has stuck to me. And it just like instantly made me like reflect. I'm like, man, like, do I have to be this way? Is it as cool as I think it is to say brutally honest, brutally honest? You can be honest with people. And I would say brutally honest because I thought being dishonest with people was such a disservice to them. But also, you can be honest with people while caring about their emotions. And that's one of the things I learned about when I was going to therapy for anger management was I didn't like people saying that anger is bad in all instances because it's a natural human emotion, and I think there are times where it's appropriate to be angry, and you can maybe do it in a healthy way. I just didn't know about healthy anger, but the idea of healthy anger is called like assertiveness rather than aggression, meaning that you're able to stand up for yourself, but also have respect for the person that you're upset with. And you don't have to win, you don't have to beat them down, you don't have to hurt their feelings. But unproductive or unhealthy anger is where you don't care. You're seeing red, you're willing to hurt someone's feelings, say things you don't mean, say things that shouldn't be said. So, yeah, the brutally honest thing was one of those quotes where my father-in-law said to me one day, I had a strong opinion. He said, when I was your age, I thought the world was black and white, and now I just think it's a bunch of gray. And it made me consider my perspective, and now I feel more like that than I did when I was, 18 and I'd first met him. Yeah, I hope to have that impact on people. That would be beautiful if one day I get a message, someone said, "You said this one thing and it really meant a lot to me." Yeah, that would make me super happy. Those little comments mean a lot to me. As a trainer, sometimes I had people say I was able to put my socks and shoes on without sitting down or leaning against anything. I'm like, that's actually really cool. You used to have no balance and now you can do that. That's really cool. Or I had a consultation, I had an assessment with a mother and son. And as they were leaving the house, I heard the son whisper to his mom. He's like, "That was really cool." And I'm like, man, that just fills me with joy. So I hope to put a positive impact out there. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. Another kind of random thought. I have a couple of these. I promise I'm wrapping up. But yeah, I've done a lot of reflecting recently. Having a kid will make you think about the person you are, the person you want to be, the things you want to teach them. One of the things I liked about sports, jujitsu now, MMA, soccer back in the day, is having a connection point with people that otherwise you have no connection. Meaning there's people from different cultural backgrounds, different ages, different interests that you share one similar interest and you guys can be friends in that moment. You can have something in common. You can be really close to each other. People that you wouldn't speak to otherwise. I think that serves two benefits. One, it teaches you to look for how people are similar as opposed to how they're different. And I guess that can make you a more compassionate person, less hateful, less fearful, whatever. And then two, it gives you a platform to then learn about the differences between you and another person and learn to appreciate those differences. I was fortunate to grow up in the DMV, just outside of DC, so Northern Virginia, and there was a huge mix of cultures. And I'd go play soccer at the park, and you'd have me, like a white kid, and you'd have like people from Africa, and people from Asia, people from Latin America, and all that stuff, all kicking a ball together. And we'd all be friends, and it was just cool to have that mix. And I really appreciate it. I guess I just urge you to find something that you can connect with people on, to start looking for more similarities rather than differences, or to be curious about people's differences as opposed to scared or angry or hateful. My mission as a coach is more than just physical gains. I love when people hit PRs. I love when someone can't hit a pull up and then they can. I love when someone can't do a push up and then they do 10. I think the most important thing though is I like coaching people. And before I was a strength coach or a personal trainer, whatever term you like to use, I was a soccer coach. When I was a soccer coach, I originally did it because I spent so much time learning about the game to pursue my passion that I thought I got to do something with this knowledge. And if I don't make it, maybe I can help someone else make it to whatever level they wish to achieve. So I enjoyed it. But when I was coaching high schoolers, for example, I wasn't too far removed from their age. I started working with 14, 15, 16 year olds, a couple 17, 18 year olds, and I was only 21, 22 at the time. I was old enough that they could still kind of look up to me as a role model or a mentor. I 100% value being in that role. I take that very, very seriously. But then also, I was young enough to be able to connect with them and still understand what it's like to be in their shoes. And man, if I had the opportunity to share my wisdom, I would, and just try to make their process smoother and better. And it wasn't about kicking a ball. Yes, it was fun to teach them little tricks about kicking a ball or passing or whatever. It was nice to give people confidence that didn't have confidence, or show them they're capable of more than they thought, or, challenge people. And I think that that is what I love about my job now, is it's not really about the weights. It's about someone thinking, I can't physically do this, and then they can, or they can't yet. And that's a powerful thing. It's maybe one day you will. You just got to keep working at it. So yeah, my mission is to coach people, and I just use the weight room as my tool, my medium to be able to do that. I have two more things that I wanted to discuss. One of them is that love is an action and not just a feeling. So if you love somebody and you feel that way, but you're not acting on it, I think that's kind of a shame. I think it's a tragedy to not give somebody a compliment when you could, just as it could be a tragedy to insult somebody without patience, without thinking about it. Like, just in general, insulting people isn't great. So my recommendation is to be impatient or impulsive with your love and your gratitude. It makes the world a better place. And maybe be patient with your criticism or your negative emotions, as opposed to vice versa. You don't want to just spew out every negative emotion you have without control or without thought, and then hold back compliments. You never know how these small compliments will impact people or brighten their day, and what that little thing can do to make a big difference. Like I said, the kid was talking to his mom as they were leaving the house yesterday, and he said one nice thing to her that I was fortunate enough to overhear. Yeah, I'm still happy about it today, you know? He didn't say you're the greatest trainer the world has ever seen. He just said that was cool. Like, I had a good time. He seems great, whatever. And I felt really good about that. So if you have the choice or the opportunity to be able to do that for somebody else, I recommend it. I think you'll be happy, they'll be happy. Finally, I just want to say that there's all this talk about living in the present, being in the present moment, all this stuff. I believe in that, but it doesn't mean you can't visit the past or the future. So like, if you live in the present, but you don't ever save your money, you never invest, you don't get insurance or something like that, and then the future comes, the future then becomes the present, and you're not prepared, that's not great. So yeah, you can prepare for the future. I think that's important. You can also look back to the past. You can reminisce, you can learn from your mistakes, you can revisit, memories and all that stuff. I think that's important too. But when you're doing something, if you want to be the best you can be, you have to be in the moment. And it took me a long time, at least in a sporting context, to learn how to be truly present, to feel rather than think about what I'm doing, because it's a lot more present. It's a lot more intuitive. There's not that delay. When you let your body take over, there's not the delay of you get the sense, then you have to think about it, then you have to tell your body what to do. And then sometimes you can kind of like lock your body up by telling it what to do, as opposed to you just feel and immediately respond and let your body do what it knows what to do in that situation. If you want to learn more about that concept, I recommend looking into the book called The Inner Game of Tennis. It just talks about the two kind of minds. You talk to yourself. Who is you and who is yourself? And maybe you are not nice to yourself. You let yourself be in control and you get out of the way. So it's kind of a fun concept. But yeah, be be present in general, but then again with balance. You can visit the future, you can visit the past. So I know I rambled for an hour. Yeah, I had a lot of thoughts going through my head. This is something that I will share with my son. And, if I'm going to speak to you directly, I haven't met you yet. I love you. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to be the best father for you. be your friend and be your parent. Yeah, I'm trying not to get emotional. But yeah, I'm gonna give you my absolute very best, and I'm looking forward to meeting you. Thank you.